Talal Taba. Welcome to the show.
I believe crypto is a better way to provide financial services. Whether it is a way for you to spend, whether it's a way for you to borrow, whether it's a way for you to earn, whether it's a way for you to remit. You see huge demand from the retail side and mainly first-time investors in crypto. I'm not very happy that they're buying Trump tokens specifically, but I think in Ethereum standpoint, they do need to fix a lot of things. And honestly, all of this stuff goes back to why Bitcoin is more important than everything else. Is if you don't know what to do something. Because that something will get you data, and that data will allow you to do the next something that actually makes sense.
Well-known fintech crypto entrepreneurs, so happy to make that intro.
I met him in ETH Riyadh. I met him in ETH Riyadh. I went to the ETH Riyadh conference last year, and I met him there. Yeah, very interesting guy.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we have an awesome, amazing guest. My name is Anton Golub. I'm here with my host, Demetrios Zamboglu. And today we have a famous person in the MENA region, in the GCC region. So it's the founder and CEO of CoinMina, one of the leading crypto brokerage companies in the Middle East, Talal Taba. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it's an honor to be here and looking forward to it.
But I think we can then start, and say it was a very exciting and volatile beginning of the year. And I think, we have to say it, to throw it out. Trump is the president, launched the coin.
Wow.
Something it would be a scandal a few weeks ago, probably a few years ago. He did it. And just to say, I personally bought in quite early. So, I didn't catch it immediately, but I caught it the next day. Now it's, I'm not super profitable on that, but, just to throw it out there. And would love to hear, Talal.
Yeah, man.
When did you buy, or if you didn't buy?
No, I actually did buy. I feel dirty about it, to be honest. And the reason why I say that is crypto is a very wide industry. Yeah. The reasons why I buy Bitcoin is very different from why I bought Trump. So the way that I thought of buying Trump, it's like how would I think going to a roulette table, for example. Mm-hmm. It's literally a gamble with slightly different odds than what you'd get on roulette tables.
So you put an amount that if you lose it, you will not regret.
100%. Something that is literally, I think of it as if this is my outing to a casino because it has no...
maybe the odds are better than the casino.
Of course they're better than the casino. It's a new age PvP one, I guess. But yeah, with the Trump token, there was a group that sent a recommendation to buy it at 37 cents. I was asleep at the time, so I bought when I woke up. I think it was at $9. And now it's trading at like 35. But the crazy thing is how much non-crypto investors became interested because of it. So I always think of, there's moments that usually happen that are like it's a phase in history. There is before and after. So the Trump token, there is literally a before and after. So Trump had de-risked it for pretty much anyone that wants to offer things that are crazy in the crypto world. Literally, if you were to do this 6 months ago, you would be persecuted. You would have loads of legal issues. But yeah, now you see Coinbase, Kraken, CoinMina, legitimate exchanges, launching these meme coins, especially like the Trump one, because of how much demand there is from a user standpoint. But
so just to say also that for everyone to know, so CoinMina listed as well. So can you tell us as well how this process went? I mean, like what was happening? Why did you decide to list? Yeah.
So at CoinMina we have a few because there's many new tokens that want to list on CoinMina because we list against so many currencies. So you have Dirham, Saudi, Kuwaiti, Omani, Bahraini, Qatari. We list against all of these currencies as well as USDT and Bitcoin. So new token issuers want to do it. But the way that we think of it is, first off, we're not a charity, we're a profit-oriented business, meaning any token we list will need to have demand. Trump, check, there is more demand than many things I've not seen before.
Than anything.
Yeah. Second and third is liquidity and pricing. So we don't have an order book, which means we route our orders and we obtain our pricing from global exchanges. Coinbase, Kraken, Cumberland, like global liquidity providers and exchanges. So Kraken, Coinbase, Binance, they all listed Trump token, which meant that we could obtain pricing and execution easily. Third is custody. We arrange custody, and we arrange our custody with BitGo, which is one of the top custodians globally. BitGo did support Trump token. So these three things worked. We obviously have a process with our regulator where we need to inform them about listing tokens, and there's a specific process that caters to what I just mentioned. So after those three things were achieved, yesterday we were able to list it, and you see huge demand from the retail side and mainly first-time investors in crypto. I'm not very happy that they're buying Trump tokens specifically, but I'd rather they buy Bitcoin. But I guess they have a different perception or different goals from buying it.
So what was the process? You just went to the office of the compliance officer, said to him, listen, there is a meme token, we have to list it. And then he said, maybe not a good idea.
Actually,
That's accurate.
it's very, very accurate to what had happened. But we, as a business, we always think that we should not be the referee. Meaning, I don't want to make decisions on behalf of my customers. I'm not an advisor. I'm a platform, which means that if there is something that my users are asking for, and it's not like privacy coins, even if my users ask for it, I cannot list it because we would be in direct violation of our rules and regulations. But we had listed Doge, we had listed Shiba Inu. So there is precedent of listing tokens that have no purpose, because meme tokens, technically they're a meme, right? You're not trying to create a layer 1 blockchain and fill in the blocks. You're not trying to create a DeFi protocol and generate cash flows. It's literally a joke. It's a meme. So, but yeah, basically our product team went to our compliance team and said, hey, we want to list this. And their first reaction are you sure this is issued by the US president? And I will tell you straight up that there is holes in this. Meaning, if you go to the white paper of Trump, page 43 of the white paper, it will tell you that it is.
There is a white paper.
I didn't know.
I didn't even know there was a white paper.
I didn't know until our compliance team shared, and they said, by the way, in page 43 of the white paper, it explicitly says that Trump has nothing to do with this in the disclaimers.
Really? Yeah.
And in the press release, he says, yeah, I launched it.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess these are the types of things that as a regulated exchange you should pay attention to. But the way we see it is it was significantly de-risked when it was listed by other global exchanges. And it's very important that we put super clear disclaimers. When you're buying USDT or USDC or any stable coin, there's specific risks that come with it. But those are not comparable to the risks that come with buying a meme coin. So we always like to be super clear and explicit to our users about investing safely and responsibly, and that these meme tokens can go to zero. And yeah, like it is very risky. But also from a business standpoint, we have investors, we have customers, and it's my duty to also serve those. So arguably that not listing the Trump token can hurt the potential growth of the company. So there's ways to do it properly.
So have you listed Melania token as well, or you're about to list it as well?
Actually, as a company that follows a data-driven approach, we had received 30x more requests to list Trump than Melania.
Okay.
So there is a clear preference on that. Some people asked about Melania, but way more people asked about Trump. So if more people ask about Melania, then we will look into that further.
Yeah. And how do you mean? I mean, it's something very important that you mentioned, actually, that if you read the white paper, which I realize now I overlooked, that part at least, that it was not issued by Trump. So
that's what the white paper says.
Who was it issued by? Do we know?
Yeah, it's by a company that is a related party, technically. That's if you go to that's one of the nice things about blockchains is that normies or people that are outside of the industry, they're like, yeah, the Trump token, there is 3 million people owning it and it is decentralized. Guys, in crypto, we have something called don't trust, verify. So if you go to SaltScan and you look at the Trump token, I think as a few days ago when I checked, there was 744,000 addresses holding the Trump token, and 80% sit in one address. And that is the address of the issuer, which is a company called CIC. That is the issuer of it, essentially.
I was going to say, I'm very impressed because when they tried to launch the NFTs,
yeah, it was not so successful.
It was not so successful at all.
Yeah.
And a lot of people lost money and a lot of people complained. And then you have, I think, the same team launching the meme token, and it's probably the best success story ever.
I will give, this is my own personal opinion, just so that our compliance team don't get angry. This is more my own personal opinion as Talal. It's much easier to manipulate a meme coin than it is to do with NFTs. Why? Because with NFTs, they're not uniform. So in my opinion, meme coins are the modular system of NFTs. It's I guess they can limit supply. So let's say we create a token today called whatever X token, and we mint 100 out of them, but we keep 99 of the tokens with us, and we only list one token to the market, and everyone fights for that token. So if there is very little supply that's there on the market, there's very little demand needed for that price to increase. And in my opinion, that's what happened with the Trump token, where there wasn't too much supply offered on the market, which meant that little demand was able to, so like a squeeze essentially. Yeah, but I think they did play it right. I agree with you. They've clearly learned from their mistakes. And if you look at the World Financial ICO also that is associated with them, it wasn't as successful. So but people remember the wins more so than they remember the failures, which is a good lesson for everyone.
For today, we'll try to avoid talking too much about the failures of the crypto industry. But I want to also just go back a little bit to the meme coins, because I agree with you. They're kind of like an analog of the NFT collections. I kind of agree with you as well. But I always felt that the meme coins have one characteristic, which is I think extremely important, which is actually what we all come from, is liquidity. So liquidity is channeled within that one fungible thing, unlike in the unfungible ones where liquidity is kind of spread out and fragmented and difficult to pull together. And I always felt, even though meme coins probably don't have this, don't have utility like the NFTs, but at least you have liquidity.
The utility is the community, apparently.
Yes,
Look, with NFTs, there is perceived utility.
Yes.
Saying in the future we can use it for title deeds, but today there's very little utility of the meme coins, so of NFTs. So with meme coins, the liquidity factor, and it's much easier to list on exchanges, because you also have to remember distribution avenues.
Maybe it's easier to buy it as well.
Yes.
Yes.
With NFTs, you need to go look which one, blah blah blah, floor price.
Yes.
6 clicks to buy.
Yeah.
instead
Yeah,
of
what
just-
is even floor price? Many times people don't understand
Yeah.
bidding for the NFT, actually. Yeah. And where do you think, like, I mean, we have now the ultimate boss in US issuing a coin, and his wife, so
Yeah.
I mean, we're now speculating, but what's then coming next? What kind of madness is coming next in your view? And personal speculative opinion, obviously we can't predict.
So I think people have let's say like post-traumatic experience post the bear market, that they don't remember how crazy things can become.
Yes.
So like these watershed moments, after this, it is completely logical for anything that we thought was crazy to happen. So like a Dogecoin ETF now seems very logical. If Trump launched his own token, why wouldn't there be a Doge ETF? I imagine other celebrities with a big following base will want to monetize that by issuing their own. And I think it will become like a approval rating kind of thing. If Trump token is going up in value, the approvals on Trump are good. If it's going down, people have... So I think it will become more of like a social meter. It's a bit dystopic, and I hope that doesn't progress in that way. But yeah, it is certainly possible. And I think this is going to pave the way also for any institution or individual with a big following base is able to monetize their followers by doing so.
You think like serious institutions like BlackRock would issue an equivalent meme coin, or you think this is more celebrities, individuals?
No, so BlackRock is publicly listed. Anytime you are publicly listed, you have a different set of requirements. And I mean, companies in traditional finance are going to look at it, or BlackRock deals with lots of regulated institutions and regulated offerings. I think the craziness will happen in an adjacent field. So listed companies, anyone that's regulated, will not be able to play around as much because they're governed by traditional rules and regulations. Whereas Trump as an individual was able to do that because he's not doing this out of a regulated financial institution. So if you think today, what regulated exchange launched a token while it is regulated? Binance launched their BNB before they were regulated. Bybit were doing it before they were regulated. Coinbase, Kraken, CoinMina, any regulated exchange will have a very hard time launching their own token. Why? Because you have an asset that's clear, but a liability that's not clear. What do I owe these people? So I think companies that are not regulated will be able to experiment a lot more, but companies that are regulated will have better investor protection, better access to traditional financial services. Yeah, so I think the craziness will happen outside of regulated entities.
I had then just one question, but you kind of answered it. when will CoinMina issue that token? Or will you issue
I
a token?
don't know if we will issue a token in the short term. We don't have plans to issue a token in the short term. But the way that I see this for CoinMina and other companies in the future is we launch technically security tokens. So you own part of, and that's how I imagine this to happen. Today, if you buy Trump token, you don't own part of Trump's income. But the way that I imagine this in the future is ICOs was actually a very brilliant ideas for capital formation, but you had very little in terms of investor protection and rights and whatnot. So if there's a way for CoinMina to do that compliantly, I think that's the future, where you're IPOing but on chain.
But please do not fall in the trap, because me and Anton, we did the security token.
Yeah,
in the past.
difficult. Yeah.
Yes.
If the community doesn't want the security token, do not try to force the community to buy a security token.
Yeah. True. Yeah, you guys have.
And difficult to list it then later on. Difficult
You
liquidity.
can only
you know?
list it most likely to your exchange.
Yes.
Yes.
Because we saw what happened with other exchanges where they can't list securities. Even XRP, when it was possibly a security, exchanges delisted it
and then relisted it.
yeah, but so this is something that I think will appeal to a different type of investors a little bit. Today, why, and I think that's also related to why real world assets or RWAs or tokenized assets have not really gone up in traction to some extent. And today, someone from traditional finance is worried from using on-chain stuff because of the risk of losing the keys, of the custodial issues, of whatever. And the crypto people that are happy to use MetaMask, that are happy to use to Trust Wallet, they don't want to make 20% a year. They want to make 5x in a week. So they have a different expectation, and I think those will converge in the future.
But again, the problem with the real world assets, you do not need to tokenize everything. Honestly, you do not need to tokenize everything. And then you cannot force demand. Again, people, maybe they do not want to buy this kind of tokens. And you again follow in this limbo, should we tokenize everything? And I have a house or a building, it has to be tokenized because this is the way forward. And then you end up paying someone a lot of money, you lose from your profits, and then nobody wants the tokens. Everybody just wants the title deeds.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what I've seen so far is what's messed up is that the companies that are in the world of tokenization at the moment are doing everything from a traditional standpoint, hiring the lawyers, drafting the contracts, and you just have a token that mimics the same process. So if you remove the token, it's useless.
It's still a database.
It's still the same, yeah. It's still more hype than actual ad, but the reasons why I think this is going to be important in the future is, and it will work for assets that are natively digital. What do I mean by that? Tokenizing a house, bad idea, because title deed is still governed locally.
It's already in the database of the government.
Yes, but where it can work is for things like debt, things that can be fully digital. Things that don't have a physical, tangible element to it. So like commodities, also bad idea, because if someone goes and steals the physical commodities, you're left with a useless token.
Correct.
But with debt, the token can be the actual bearer ownership of it.
But we don't have a lot of credible issuers at the moment in the crypto world to do on-chain issuance.
If your cash flow is generated on-chain, you can easily say that the cash flow is being generated from this. And so let's say Uniswap was to issue that. Yeah, sure, you can validate that the trading fees are coming from this, and that's how I see it progressing.
And I mean, you have a very good insight into what's happening in the region, in the UAE. Maybe in the context of real world assets, do you see this something happening here locally in the UAE? Or do we need to go somewhere else? Or do we need to go offshore? You're the insider here,
Man, when like in 2018, we did a tokenized sukuk, which is Islamic version of a bond. And I did that in my previous startup, along with Al Hilal Bank in Abu Dhabi. And my regulator at the time was Richard Teng, which is the current CEO of Binance. And then we were like, oh, this is going to change the world. We're in 2025. There is not a single sukuk token that is popular. So I guess I would like to say that this is progressing nicely, but the reality is it's not as easy. Traditional financial institutions, they work with let's say assets that are bankable securities, because there's regulations, or like an ISIN, an international security identification number, because it sorts out custody, reporting, etc. It's very hard to change how these companies operate. Having said that, I do think that in the UAE, companies such as ourselves will be at a massive advantage because part of the licensing framework will allow virtual asset service providers to interact with tokenized assets, as opposed in the US, dealing with securities is a big no-no. But then again, it's not going to be as popular as stable coins, not going to be popular as Bitcoin or layer ones or meme coins in the short term.
Okay. So we need to then go back to DeFi, to crypto.
I was thinking go even
deeper.
deeper. Like what is CoinMen? And let's start from there, maybe.
But I mean, just to mention then, because we are talking a lot about, I mean, let's say like that, like Solana is the superstar of this current market cycle. And I mentioned this because you were very early into DeFi in Switzerland, actually. Ethereum was that superstar, pioneer, has its own challenges now. But Solana is like, I mean, let's just say they're crushing it. They're doing amazing.
And apparently they're doing some nice parties as well in the region.
They have a strong presence.
This is what I hear.
Yeah, I haven't tried out any of the parties, but I've certainly tried out some of the apps.
We did one with them in Chicago. So
طيب, make sure to invite your friend Talal next time.
Why were you so shy inviting us?
But لا, really, I think Solana was able to crack the retail user adoption, which is super, super important. But if you think of the innovations in the world of DeFi that have happened, which means Lombard lending in the form of MakerDAO, which now did a very bad rebranding in my opinion.
How's it called? Sky now?
Yeah, Sky. I don't know why, man. As if people need more things to be confused about. But technically, this is you lock up your Ethereum and you can borrow against it. That was an innovation where you can borrow in a permissionless manner. Super important, in my opinion. Uniswap, which technically took a lot of the code from Bancor, created the AMM, the automated market making. That was also a very interesting innovation that happened on the Ethereum ecosystem. Third, Compound and Aave, money markets that work there. So I think I'm very biased. I told you, my bags are mostly ETH than Solana, so I'm not objective, I guess, and do have some bias. But many of the products that are on Solana are ported from Ethereum into Solana. And I've yet to see probably the Pump.fun, and these were very strong from a user adoption standpoint. Yeah, let's see. I mean, Solana, they've also been able to weather heavy storms. And I think resilience is something that people heavily underestimate. If you have FTX as your main supporter, and your main supporter goes to absolute crap, and you are able to succeed after that, that says a lot about the founders, says a lot about the builders. So I'm way more bullish on Solana than I was previously, because if you go through trouble and you persevere and you solve it, then if you think of Ethereum, they suffered the DAO attack and you split Ethereum and ETH Classic. And then after that, they were able to really grow it. But I think in Ethereum standpoint, they do need to fix a lot of things. And honestly, all of this stuff goes back to why Bitcoin is more important than everything else. Because with Bitcoin, there is no boss, there is no foundation, it works, and there is, so from a neutrality standpoint, I think, I don't know if you saw Vitalik's tweets a few days ago. It's like, if there's changes at the Ethereum Foundation, I'm the one that's calling them. You don't see that in any other blockchain other than Bitcoin.
It's true. But I mean, now also I'm like, trying to analyze the situation that's happening around Ethereum. I think that, talking about where Solana did well is actually distribution. The tech, actually, if you think about it, like in other industries, the tech is important, but it's like, where can you capture the demand, right? Do you have the distribution? And I kind of feel that very soon, as kind of other blockchains were emerging, all of a sudden we started saying, okay, but is this better than Ethereum? Is this faster? Do we have a bigger block size? And then the comparison was a little bit, I think, not the right one for the phase where we are, which is like, we need to get the people on board, right? We need to get them signed up to get the wallet and buy,
Zuckerberg's famous saying of move fast and break things is something that's super important in the world of tech. And why do I say that? I don't know if you remember the Solana phone.
Yeah,
you remember the Solana phone?
Yeah, I remember.
How crazy was that idea? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, for you to succeed in the world of technology, you need to experiment and you need to be not afraid to fail. So with Solana, they did the Solana phone, which was absolutely insane. And then no one gave any attention to it up until Bonk issued a meme coin that allowed. So that was the resurgence of meme coins, in my opinion. When Bonk, obviously there's many catalysts to it, but the Solana phone was at some point so expensive because you had a big amount of Bonk preloaded into it. I guess with Solana, they were not afraid to experiment, and they subsidized the hell out of their blockchain fees, which ended up leading to super cheap transactions, which is what retail users want. Because like capitalizing on Ethereum's failure with very high transaction fees, Solana are like, yeah, we'll subsidize it at the expense of decentralization, but that's fine.
We had a bit of a similar discussion as well with one of our previous guests, with Pierre from Definity, and we also talked a lot about how L2s are cannibalizing now Ethereum, right? Because Ethereum is still struggling with transaction fees. So you have now Arbitrum, you have now Optimism, right? Polygon, I think, is a little bit on the side now with NFTs, but now you have competing blockchains hooked up to you, paying you this small fees, to show it, running big businesses and having distribution. For instance, Base has distribution through Coinbase, right?
Yeah.
It's a very complex ecosystem what's happening now.
There's a theory that L2s are going to be as popular as websites, and everyone will launch their own L2.
Yes.
So Coinbase launched one, Kraken is launching one. Many companies will end up launching their own L2 because they want to use that only for their users. Actually, I don't have a very strong opinion about that. And the reason why is probably influenced by my partner, Yazan. He believes that everything will end up settling on Bitcoin at the end. So even Ethereum will become technically a Bitcoin L2, because everyone, if value becomes big enough, you need to settle it on the most secure chain, and that is Bitcoin. But anyway, that's for a more in-depth discussion later. But I kind of subscribe to that logic. There will be people that want to prioritize security will end up wanting to settle and reconcile on Bitcoin at the end.
I think we're now circling back to, the king of the cryptos, which is Bitcoin, which, we touched upon in our warm-up for the podcast. Who was the early user adopter of Bitcoin? It was Silk Road, right? And we had the founder recently pardoned by Trump, so another strong move, I think, political move.
One of the strongest.
Strongest move. How do you see that? Because you're also an early crypto pioneer. You might remember those painful days with Mt. Gox blowing up. Yeah. Silk Road was after or before Mt. Gox? I think before Mt. Gox was the Silk Road scandal. How do you see Ross Ulbricht, right?
Yes.
Got pardoned recently.
So I guess one thing that people have is mistrust in politicians. Maybe rightly so, because of how much they've lied over the years and not
in the UAE. But not in the UAE.
لا, I mean, in the UAE, there's not really politicians. We have leadership.
Yes.
I wouldn't even call them politicians,
yes.
Right? Politicians, I'm referring to US politicians of making big promises of changes. I guess even like in the UAE, you don't have 4-year cycles. You have sustainable vision that is being able to, you have accountability over time. Whereas the US, you kind of flip-flop every 4 years. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is with Trump, he made lots of big promises. But the libertarians supported Trump mainly because of this promise. I know a lot of US people, or like US voters and people that are into the world of crypto, that literally said the Ross Ulbricht thing is a single issue vote. And just because of his support to that, that's at least the Libertarian Party that historically was not really supporting Trump. So I believe that Trump's pardon of Ross was to kind of say and show that, hey, listen, guys, listen, everyone, I'm going to follow through on my promise.
I am the man. I can't do it. If I want to do it, I will do it.
It's a controversial topic for sure, because there's definitely lots of controversy around that, given that what he built was really misused and
yes.
ended up creating issues and crimes. And but I guess we are entering an age where there's more deregulations. Like Biden's administration was very controlling, and now with the Trump administration, we're going to see a new wave of, and it will come with good and bad things. So I think you will see way more innovations, way more crazy ideas, but you will also see more scams. You will see more theft. You will see more rug pulls, unfortunately. So yeah, I guess it's very important to stay level-headed. And one of the best advice that I ever got was you can't get too excited in the bull market, and you can't get too depressed in the bear market. You always have to dampen your expectations, whether on the upside or the downside.
I wanted to say before, and I didn't want to stop the discussion. Why did you start CoinMena? How did you start CoinMena? What happened here?
I didn't start CoinMina. That's to start. Yeah, so Yazan, نحن we're three founders. Dina Sam'an, who used to be with BitOasis and is one of the best people to work with. Honestly, she's amazing. And Yazan, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. So in 2020, Yazan said, we used to work on, me and Yazan have been working together full time since 2017. We've built a few DeFi protocols and the tokenized asset stuff that no one really wanted to use. But I guess in 2020, I received an email on my old email. You know when you get an invite on Google, and I got an email, you've been invited, talal@coinmina.com. And that was the first time I heard the word CoinMina. When I got an invite to join a new G Suite, a new Google Suite. And I call up Yazan, I'm like, what is this? Like, yeah, that's the name of the exchange. And I've already bought the domain. I'm like, all right, cool. It was COVID time, so we didn't really have anything to do. And I'm like, but wait, if we're going to do this, we need to do this in a regulated manner. Around the same time, a common friend who's with our board, he's founding board member, Mr. Khalid Saad, was like, Talal, want to introduce you to Dina. I'm like, man, of course I know Dina. I used to be a client. Me, Dina, and Yazan got together and decided to basically create a regulated exchange. Initially, it was under the Central Bank of Bahrain, and now more recently also under VARA. So Yazan came up with the idea, and Dina and I co-founded as well. And we kicked off officially in 2021 under the Central Bank of Bahrain. And we initially focused on retail users, and then slowly but surely in the bear market, we realized that there's more demand on corporate. So we focused on corporate, and now we have two lines essentially. One is for corporate and high net worth, and the other is for retail users. But the focus still remains on ramp and off ramp, because we felt that that was the biggest failure in the market. And many exchanges have leverage, many exchanges have margin, they have fancy order books, but no one had good on ramps and off ramps. And it is extremely ironic and funny how they say an entrepreneur is most suited to solving the problems they faced. I faced these problems big time of on ramp and off ramp, so I knew what the challenges were, I knew what the opportunities were as well. And we've been focusing on that the past couple of years. And in this year, we're launching significantly more products. So hopefully you'll see way more interesting products coming out of CoinMina, other than the very reliable service for on-ramp and off-ramp that we have.
Maybe you can tell us a little
Maybe
bit
you want to give us I'm so excited now.
Yeah, I mean, the way...
Can, yeah?
No, of course. And I told you in the beginning that if there's a question that I cannot answer, I will tell you, guys, I'm sorry, I can't answer this. And even with the product side, I'll give you a high-level overview where I believe crypto is a better way to provide financial services. So the services that we will offer will basically be financial services built on crypto rails, whether it is a way for you to spend, whether it's a way for you to borrow, whether it's a way for you to earn, whether it's a way for you to remit. So, and those will be for retail users and for corporate users as well. So we have a few interesting partnerships coming about to help us achieve that. But we think of ourselves as a more financial services aligned crypto exchange or crypto virtual asset service provider. So we have not done a single transaction before we got the license. Whereas many exchanges, they launched using some offshore license and then tried to get regulated retrospectively. At CoinMina, we're built like a financial institution. So that's why we will offer services that you typically get from traditional financial providers, whether it's lending, borrowing, sending, remitting. Yeah.
Will you have like, just to dive a bit, you will have like that we can pay with a credit card, or we can borrow against our crypto.
Sure,
so kind of
sure.
all the beautiful stuff in DeFi that we mentioned, is this something within a regulated
Yes,
environment?
and the way that I see, and this kind of also aligns with how I see the future of crypto progressing. I imagine that to reach mass retail, you need to have username, password, Google 2FA. Because it's extremely difficult to convince my aunt or my mom to manage her own wallet. You know, it's just not going to happen. It's for them, the perceived risk and the headache is not worth it. So I imagine that you will have a centralized access to decentralized services. And the example I will give has given probably the best user experience I've seen so far in Polymarket, which is prediction market, gambling, whatever you want to call it. And then Moonshot, which is the app that is very popular for meme coins. So you log in with your email, you log in with your Gmail. So it's a centralized access, but then you deal with decentralized financial services. So Polygon is built on, Poly Market is built on Polygon, and the markets are actually happening on chain. But you don't need to memorize your private key. You don't need to worry about storing your seed phrase, and you don't see all that complex stuff, which mass retail doesn't really. So CoinMina's vision will also be a centralized access to everything decentralized. So that customers, if they need to call someone, they can call. But then they're obtaining their services. Today, you have centralized front end, centralized back end, centralized providers. The way that I imagine this to happen in the future is you will have a centralized element here, but that allows you to interact with all sorts of dApps.
And who is building all of these things? Your team? Are you outsourcing?
Yeah. Now we have a small development team, but we have a very strong team that's focused. Yeah, we don't outsource any of it. We outsource some parts of the business. Custody, I mentioned we work with BitGo. Mm-hmm. So BitGo, they have, in my opinion, one of the most secure. They have $100 billion of assets under custody. 100 billion. How much time is gonna get me? Okay, so 100 billion is a very big number. That
you will not be the first target, let's say.
Yeah, I know. And with BitGo, they're able to get very good insurance. They're able to get, so that's the stuff it's not really outsourced. We use specialized service providers in areas, but the development is all done in-house. Every line of code written in our applications is written by CoinMina developers, but we do plug into global providers. So like with cards, we partnered with Network International. For custody, we partnered with BitGo. For execution, we execute with other global exchanges that have order books and liquidity providers. So it's a CoinMina product that plugs into multiple specialized third parties. But yeah, the development is done in-house.
Can I ask you, how was it to work with the Central Bank of Bahrain and with VARA, our favorite kind regulator here in Dubai?
I'm very biased, man. We've made millions of dollars because of the good things that they've given us, which is the license. So obviously, as a fully licensed entity by them, I'm very grateful. And we would not have had our business if it wasn't for them. So I guess, yeah, we're very lucky to be regulated by the Central Bank of Bahrain and VARA. And it takes time, man. It takes persistence. Most companies stop halfway through. Because how much time do you think it took us? Obviously, sometimes the ball is in our court, sometimes the ball is in their court, sometimes there was COVID where no one really was thinking of your licensing. When we applied first to the Central Bank of Bahrain, it was in the middle of COVID. So
they thought you missed the email address or something.
Yeah, no. In 2020, no one was thinking of, I have a deadline in a week, things took longer. So it took us 13 to 16 months to get our license. I was
going to say 18.
Wow, it's a long time.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
13 to 16 months between those two licenses. And many companies, they stop halfway through. But that is why it is super important to always keep a very low cost base before you can make money. So CoinMina, when we created the MVP, before we launched, CoinMina's MVP was so simple that it did not connect with a backend. Meaning, like when I went to investors and when I went to the central bank to show them what my product looks like, it looks like an app. It works perfectly. But you say buy 1 Bitcoin and nothing happens in the backend. But why? Because I did the initial one, we just wanted to show them how it looked like. And we kept a very low cost base until we got the license. Then we hired, so that allowed us to, many companies, they hire expensive team and etc. and they apply for the license, and the license takes a lot of time. So before they launch, they've already spent millions of dollars. Yes. Whereas we waited to get the license and then we ramped up. And we had the luxury of doing that because we did some self-funding to begin with. So there is no VC sitting, breathing down my neck. Hey, when are you going to launch? When are you going to make money? So yeah, my advice to myself and for other founders is keep your cost base minimal to start as much as possible, because it also teaches you how to be efficient.
Is this something you learn on the first startups? Because usually founders learn along the way.
I've failed many times, and I'm not afraid to fail either, because
but your first startup was not a failure, just to say. I don't perceive it like that.
Yeah, but no,
it was early.
I tried to do an app called Sahem, stock brokerage, absolute flop, didn't even launch.
Okay.
So now the startups, I'm telling you about the ones that actually worked. But I tried to do a stock brokerage app before and applied for a license in ADGM, it didn't even launch. and I didn't even raise VC for it or whatever. So I think you learn a lot from your failures if you can make sure that you don't become demotivated. Like I know many people that said, oh, you know what, this failed, I'm gonna go back to my old job. And the reality is, if you have persistence and you use that experience as fuel to, and you have to choose solid partners, because like Dina and Yazan, I'll go to war with them today. I know that they will have my back. I know that they will have my back, because we've been through difficult times together. And if you go through difficult times together with your partners, it is the best way to give you confidence to even, success is very difficult if you don't have partners that you can rely on, because you will have times where you will say, no, man, this problem is way too big. But if you have people that you trust with you, you know that you're facing the problems together, as opposed to fighting together and also having a problem that comes in between it. Because startups fail, in my opinion, because, and this is not purely backed by data, so that's why I say it's my opinion, not enough cash flow. In crypto, that's usually not an issue in the bull market, because there's stupid money in the industry. Lack of focus, which is launching 10 products at the same time and doing bad in all of them. And third is co-founder and founder dispute and internal issues. So cash part, we resolved. We have a good business model and we are profitable, so we don't have that. Lack of focus, we were super strict. We did not launch any products until now at CoinMina, and hopefully this year we launch. We wanted to be super strong at this on-ramp and off-ramp, and then expand beyond that. And then from a founder and co-founder management standpoint, we were very clear on what the roles of each person is when we started, and I think that goes a long way in making sure that you future-proof yourself from potential issues.
I also believe the same. I think the most important thing is to have the right team, then to have the funding, because somehow you need to survive, and then you need a good product, but it doesn't need to do everything.
Yeah.
So if you have these three ingredients, then I think you're unstoppable.
Yeah, and you do one thing very good that people are willing to pay for, and then you take it on from there. Brian Armstrong says something that sounds super simple, but it's so true, is if you don't know what to do something, because that something will get you data, and that data will allow you to do the next something that actually makes sense. And if that also doesn't make sense, do something, get data. And Brian Armstrong is such an inspiring guy, man. What he's done with Coinbase is so impressive, and they started a long time ago, but they were still able to push. If you look at Coinbase's financials are public, which means that anyone working in crypto and running a crypto business, you have a gold mine or a Bitcoin mine of information. And if you see how their revenue changed over time, they have so much money coming from Base. They have so much money coming from USDC. When a few years ago, most of their money were coming from retail trading fees. It gives you a very good insight of how the US market is progressing, which is usually slightly ahead of global markets. So
also Robinhood financials is also public, so you will be able also to see how the brokerage operates and how the digital business operates.
I don't dig into those too much. I'm gonna need to start doing that.
Yes, because also they have a lot of new ideas coming in the market, and the website is spectacularly good.
Yeah, and the app, when you buy it, gives you the confetti. It's the Robinhood UX is great. I agree.
Do you think that Coinbase adapted well to those challenges? Is because there were, product. It's not a challenge. It's like a product refocus. Because I personally felt where they were always lacking, but for objective reasons, is the leveraged products, right? They were always the ones where you need to go to BitMEX, or you need to go to Binance if you wanted to trade perpetuals. They were really not the ones who couldn't do that, actually.
It is, in my opinion, it is very unfair to compare locally licensed versus offshore Banana Republic license. With complete transparency. If we were to get a Bahamas license for CoinMina today, I can launch 125x. Who's gonna say? If BitMEX was regulated in Seychelles, anything that is crazy, you don't get it licensed locally, because the local regulators actually care about investor protection, and it's not only about making money. Whereas offshore regulators, their main thing are profit oriented, and a regulator sitting in Seychelles, they don't care if someone in a foreign country goes bust from over leverage. That's the reality, and I'm giving you the direct answer. So with Coinbase, it's not that they did not want to be aggressive on that side. I think Coinbase has been super aggressive, whether it is on take custody, man. Custody, what Coinbase has done with custody is absolutely insane. People forget that 8 out of the 11 ETFs have Coinbase custody. It's so good from a business standpoint that it's become an industry risk, in my opinion. But they, like, their Coinbase app is very solid. I only can say good things about Coinbase, to be honest.
Tell you that, I mean, I use Coinbase a lot less than other apps, but the amount of concerns I see with people who have problems with the Coinbase app and the lack of support they get it, like many times there's like a running joke on X, you know, that the only way to get support from Coinbase is to tag Brian Armstrong and Coinbase on X to get support. Otherwise they're, you know, washing their hands there.
Sure, but US customers are quite entitled, in my opinion. And well, it's true. They expect this level of service that is not feasible. And if in the US, okay, we also need to look at the bottom of it. Can Coinbase hire a support team that are sitting in foreign countries? I don't think so. They need to have their personal data stored locally. But the US is expensive. At CoinMina, we can afford to do that because we're operating in a region where you have ability to hire team members for much less cost than the US. I think it's very difficult to have personalized, customized support for US regulated businesses. It's just not feasible, especially if you scale to the level of Coinbase where you have, to do that for retail users is difficult, man. And we see that with CoinMina, and we have a fraction of the customers that Coinbase has.
I think this is one of your big USPs. I mean, the personalized support is something really needed because not all the retail guys know how to buy a Bitcoin or a Trump coin, how to deposit, how to do even the KYC. And then you end up just helping them pass stage by stage, and they open the account, and then they are the advocates of your brand.
Yeah, man. At CoinMina, we take this very seriously. And I would be willing to bet, and I obviously biased because I'm the CEO, but I believe we have the best client support in all of the region when it comes to hand-holding customers. And we obviously don't give advice because we're a broker, but we help customers throughout the whole process, whether it's onboarding, deposit, trade, withdraw, and it's a more personalized experience. We have a super support team, and I'm very grateful for everything they've done for the company. And they're kind of the face, right? They're when you go to a store, and that's like the first thing you see.
The window of the company.
Like
the initial window, the initial thing you see from a store as the first interaction you have.
And it's also many times in a sensitive situation because they're looking for help, right? Usually you don't contact support because you're so happy, right? But it's because you have a challenge. And then if the support team helps you resolve your problem, I mean, it's like I know I'm like a kid in a candy store when finally, they resolve my problem,
And then one thing that's very important is that even though the support team deal in a personalized manner, in the back end, most of the stuff is automated. So let's say a customer wants a statement of account. There's no one doing anything there. It's automated. Someone needs support with a withdrawal. Everything is automated. But the person speaking to you is speaking to you in a personalized manner, and it's not a bot answering. It's a real human answering. But on the back end system of ours, most of this stuff is fully automated.
We had a lot of discussions in the previous podcast about the role of AI in services, in technology, in financial products. Do you use AI in your day-to-day business?
Not as much as I'd like.
No?
Not as much as I'd like.
But why?
Okay, so from a customer standpoint, it's still not suitable for personal identifiable information. So you cannot really integrate it into your systems fully because you can't share personal customer data on AI LLMs yet. But what we've done, which was super crazy and amazing, is it's very difficult to go through every module. So my co-founder created something called CoinMina Compliance LLM, which you use it for help. You don't rely on it fully. But basically, we uploaded all the VARA regulations, all the local UAE regulations, all the central bank regulations, all the FATCA regulations. And then you ask them, hey, I'm looking to list Trump token. And they tell you, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, refer to rule X. You need to submit form X or form Y. So this AI LLM has received all of the regulations in text format, and now it can exactly reference, which is something that a compliance officer with 50 years, 50 years is probably going to be too much to remember it, but someone with 15 years experience with someone that fully understands the module would have done that. So we also use it on the marketing side quite a bit.
But Can you give an example, like how that looks like on the marketing side?
Creating iterations of so let's say you come up with an ad and you want to create 10 iterations of that ad so that you can do A/B testing on ad. Usually a designer would have created the initial one and created the second one. The original idea comes from us, but then you're able to do iterations of it using AI. We'd like to use it more, and some of our investors one of our investors actually, Beko Capital, are very good in terms of supporting their startups in figuring out the best ways you can do it.
And just to ask you, is this you do this with the context of well-known LLMs, like you go to ChatGPT, or is this a custom software that you have?
No,
created?
so it's the compliance one is ChatGPT.
Okay.
We like Perplexity a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, Perplexity is good because it also gives you the sources. And yeah, so to answer your question, it's not a custom one, but you create a custom version out of the ChatGPT one, for example, where you feed it all the data. And yeah, but honestly, one of the things that I miss is having free time to do research, man. I'm so into the CoinMina growth, to ops, to licensing, that I don't have time to just sit and waste on my laptop learning new stuff. In 2016, 17, I learned so much stuff in crypto. I used to participate in every ICO in front of me. What's the minimum amount? Invest. I've invested in hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of ICOs. Just because I wanted to understand what the process looks like. Now I don't have that luxury yet, so yeah.
You should definitely look at the AI from the trading perspective, because all of your clients that will be onboarded now, they have questions, they need to do some market analysis, and then if you program something like an AI assistant or a trading bot, or who gives information and also executes if there is validation from the client, then this also will be a game changer.
Yeah, it's something that we're looking into. Regulators don't necessarily want us giving any advice, even if it's AI based.
No advice.
But market research is a very good one.
So, for example, the trader can go and say, okay, I want to invest in a token that in the last 2 years have appreciated this much. So then it will give him a list of the tokens. Then we buy or sell. So
yeah, I mean, Perplexity is nice because it's also directly plugged into the internet, so you don't need to. You can just tell him the token name, and it'll pull out up-to-date data. Yeah.
I also found that on a few personal cases where I was trying it out, that Perplexity is a lot better with producing code or actually analyzing code. So on one occasion when I was using it within ChatGPT, he produces a code, but then you run it, and then obviously you need to debug it because it says as error.
Yeah.
So, and then once you tell him there's an error here, he debugs it and then says there's no more errors. But you know how coding compilers go. Then they tell you the next one. I found that the ChatGPT is very much better on this marketing side, how you create content, how you create texts, but Perplexity is somehow more precise.
From my understanding is Cursor is super popular and Cloud Sonnet. Those two are, but honestly, I haven't had one thing I would love to do when I have a bit more time is work on Replit, for example, to create an MVP product.
What's Replit?
Replit is an interactive, it's like kind of Google Sheets, but for developers, where you can have a collaborative browser, and you're able to create applications on the go without you needing to really know how to code. I'm very biased. It's a Jordanian founder, but the company has, I think, 30 or 40 million developers using it. It's one of the fastest growing companies and worth billions of dollars now. Yeah, I would love to be able to dedicate more time. You can build apps on the go. It is insane. One of my friends made some good money on crypto, and he's chilling. He's not really working. He just builds random apps. You'd be surprised the types of apps that they're able to build. For example, he created one for like treasure hunts.
Yes.
And as part of this treasure hunt app, you're supposed to go find, for example, a type of plate. And when you take a picture of it, if you take a picture of something else, it will tell you, oh, this is not actually it. And this is something that historically, if you wanted to build something like that, is very difficult. But if you're building it using an app that has
image recognition.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I ask you a question? So when you went for to Central Bank of Bahrain with your MVP or other MVPs, could have Replit done what you...
No, Replit is new. We went to the central bank in 2020 or...
Today's technology, how long would it take you to create the MVP that you were showing then?
Yeah,
A couple of days, probably.
yeah, less actually, less.
Wow, less than days.
I mean, yeah, because the design was there and you just need to... Yeah, it would have taken a few days as opposed to several weeks.
Strong.
And I'm not that good. Yani, people better than me would be able to do it significantly faster and with a better quality. But yeah, that's one thing that I think is going to be a massive differentiating factor between us as professional adults that get it and not. Yani, sometimes I meet with people that are 60 years old, but they get it fully. They get crypto fully. But I meet some people that have difficult time sending an email. I want to make sure that I stay up to date with the latest technology, and we're at a point where if we don't spend time and effort on this, the boat will have passed.
Should we switch gears and ask him about 2025? What is his plans?
Yes.
And find out which conferences he's going to be attending.
And where can people find you? I think this is also you're very well known in the region and the industry.
Yeah, and what is well known, man?
come
Reality is I don't care too much about that stuff, whether well known or not. Most importantly is that I'm living up to what my expectations are of myself and what I think of my potential, and I guess helping the people around me and overall having a positive impact. But enough of the Gandhi stuff and more moving on to where can people find me? I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm also lurking a lot on Twitter, maybe being a bit more active in 2025. Those are the two main platforms that I'm using, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time on WhatsApp as well. Yeah, but that's I guess business, family, friends, everything combined into one. And if you live in the Middle East or Dubai, that will become part of your modus operandi. We are not big on sponsoring events at CoinMina because my rationale is unless you are the main sponsor, it's not worth it. Like, I don't want to work with a bronze sponsor. I want to work with the main one. So, and I don't think the value for money is there for being the main one. So we always do side events. And those side events end up being way better than the main event. Again, I'm a bit biased. But like around Token 2049, we will have a side event. I'll also be probably going to the World Government Summit.
What is that?
What is the... We've never heard.
It happens every year in Dubai, where like people from all around the world, governments come in and talk about tech-related stuff. And it's all people that work in government. Usually people working in government that are attending such events are keen to meet people that work in high-growth industries. So yeah, I heavily recommend going. I don't know. I think it's invite only, but it's worth it. And yeah, so I'll hopefully be going to that. There's the Satoshi Roundtable coming up also end of the month. I don't know if I'm going to that or not.
Why you think you're not going?
Yes.
This is because we're both going.
Yeah, I think this is one of the
Man,
strongest.
it's top. But it requires a lot of time that I don't know if I have. Like,
yeah, it's like 4 days or something.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
4 days in this market is. I went in
4 years,
Yeah.
probably.
I went in 2023. It was one of the best experiences ever. I think it was the first time being done in Dubai. 2024, last year, my son was born around the same time, so I wasn't even thinking of anything else. I'm very happy that I did that I did not care about anything else in the world, but gave it its importance. And now this year, CoinMina is kind of acting like a amount of attention it needs is a lot. So, but yeah, hopefully I'll go. Actually, now that I think about it, it was probably the best event I've ever been to. So yeah, there's good reason to. And now I know both of you are going, so makes it even better.
We should tell Bruce we need some referrals.
Yeah, honestly, Bruce is a great guy, man. You know, Bruce in 2014 was a visiting lecturer to Bentley University, where my brother was studying. And he asked everyone in class to set up blockchain.com wallet to learn about Bitcoin. And I was lucky that my brother pinged me. He's like, oh, Talal, remember this crazy thing that you told me about Bitcoin? Well, now I have a blockchain.com wallet. And this professor called Bruce, he's actually visiting lecturer. I'm like, oh man, you've had the best visiting lecturer ever. Yeah, Bruce is a great guy that's been doing it for a very long time and also has very good access and experience in the Middle East. And it's great that the Satoshi Roundtable is happening here. I don't know what other events I'll go to be honest. I need to catch up with my marketing team and see where I'm going to leap in Saudi also next
Yes,
month,
yeah, okay.
as I imagine the Saudi market is going to be it's the largest market in the Middle East, and I believe they will be introducing digital assets soon, along with Jordan and Oman. So Coin MENA is Middle East and North Africa. We've been lucky to be regulated in Bahrain and the UAE, and inshallah we'll be aiming to get regulated in those other markets as well. Because being able to deposit locally is such an important thing if you want to access corporate and retail users.
So Africa will be one of your next stops this year.
Yeah,
So you might be spending some time there.
yeah, I hope so. But I guess the priority goes to the GCC because as a profit-oriented business, you need to look at disposable income, and disposable income in Oman, Saudi, Qatar is significantly more than the rest of the markets. But yeah, we will want to expand geographically for sure.
Can I just ask you, is because many times people have a hard time to on-ramp into crypto. Can people on-ramp through Coin MENA if they live in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? So do you have the local currency?
Yes, we have Saudi Riyal accounts in Bahrain and in Dubai. We have a good amount of Saudi users. I would say as number of users, Saudi is one of the highest we have. And users can deposit via card and wire. It depends on your bank. Some banks are not as friendly. If you sign up on CoinMe and you reach out to our support, we'll give you all the tips and tricks of how to on-ramp from KSA. But yeah, it's a massive, massive market.
But you onboard the Saudi clients from the Bahrain entity, not from the UAE.
We technically can do both, but
You can
Bahrain
do
is but Bahrain is technically much closer to Saudi.
Yes. This is
Um,
what I hear as well. I
yeah.
didn't know this.
yeah. If you've been to the east province of Saudi, there's a bridge that people go to used to on the weekends. For example, in the old days, there was no cinemas in Saudi. So people would drive from Saudi to Bahrain to, for example, to go have a drink or to go watch cinema or to go bowling. Now, Saudi has improved and changed socially a lot, and props to them, honestly. The 2030 vision that they put in place, or His Highness put in place, has been amazing. Yani, the growth in Saudi is nothing short of spectacular, and yeah, I guess Bahrain is a place where lots of Saudi business go to.
In Saudi, in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I'll definitely introduce you to a good friend of mine, Morad, who is running Takadao.
Okay,
He's
yeah, I
the one
know
of
him.
the- I feel he's one of the most well-known fintech crypto entrepreneurs. So happy to make that intro. and hope-
I met him in ETH
Ah, you
Riyadh.
know.
I met him in ETH Riyadh. I went to the ETH Riyadh conference
Yes.
last year, and
Ah,
I met him there. Yeah, very interesting guy.
Yes, yeah. They're doing interesting.
Takaful,
Sharia-
but in a DAO format.
Yeah, exactly, in a DAO format, Sharia compliant insurance products, and very interesting develop. I mean, but very small ecosystem there. What I understand, actually. Just one question from my side: how many crypto-friendly banks do we have in the UAE? Do we need more? Can we drop names? I mean, we can drop one name. Hopefully, Michael joins the podcast as well at some point. From how do you see the situation with the banks in UAE? Because I kind of feel
It's
many
improved
times,
a lot, man. It's improved
It's
a lot.
improved a lot, you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, it's improved a lot. Most of our business today is in the UAE, and all of our business is on ramp and off ramp. So, Zand Bank, you mentioned
Yeah,
Michael.
yes.
Zand Bank, props to Zand, hats off. Really, they've been the crypto community in the UAE is grateful for what Zand has done, which is allowed virtual asset service providers such as ourselves to obtain a client money account. So, shout out to Asan, who's the head of corporate there, and Michael and their board and everything for everyone there for the great work that they've done. M-Bank is also another very solid bank that is also regulated by the central bank and has been very progressive on this front. Now you have bigger banks getting into the game as well. I don't know if I can disclose those yet, but some international names that have presence here will also be joining the party. And one of the differences at CoinMina is once you have a relationship manager, we will actually help you get your banking setup in place. So this is a indirect marketing plug, but yeah, I think Zand has been the most popular, and especially that they bank many of the virtual asset service providers.
And just to say is that I have seen also partnerships with crypto companies, and usually, I mean, it's digital banks. So for instance, the one where I personally use it because it's convenient. So it's Vio Bank together with Fuse from Abu Dhabi, which I thought it was an interesting combination, but not really what a crypto native person would want, because you can just kind of virtually synthetically buy, but you cannot take it out. It's not that convenient. But
and you pay 2%.
yeah, they lowered the fees now a little bit, but it's brutal. Fees are brutal. I mean, just to say, if you're watching that, this is brutal.
La, honestly, look, first of all, I think Wio is probably the best digital bank that has come out in the past couple of years. They have done some insane work. Props to them. Their user experience is super.
UI UX,
yeah,
think
UI
so.
UX
It
is
very
top
good,
notch, man.
very
Super
good.
clean, and I can only say good things about Wio. Yani, don't like this 2% dig is actually logical in my opinion, because as a financial institution, you have significantly more risk than a crypto exchange, because you have a business that's already generating loads of money from customer deposits, CASA deposits, lending, borrowing, the traditional financial services. So by adding crypto, you're adding an unknown new area of possible risk that can ruin or cannibalize your existing business. But for me, my whole business is crypto, so I'm already taking the risk anyway. So for financial institutions, they will need to make money for it to be worthwhile, because everything in business is risk reward. And I think Fuse is doing some very good work on that side. And I think many other banks will also join the party. But the way that I see it is you cannot build a high growth, aggressive crypto startup and have a mentality of serving banks. So going back to the expensive fees when banks want to offer crypto, I think similar to any new service, if an incumbent is offering a new service, they're going to want to charge a lot for it, which is logical because they had to invest time, money, etc. But I'm of the opinion that if you can't withdraw your crypto, then you are better off just buying the BlackRock ETF, because BlackRock's counterparty risk is very low. They have very low fees, but the future of crypto is self-custodial in my opinion, or some sort of multi-sig setup.
So I think before we close, I would like to ask you, what do you think of the region? Do you believe in some new projects coming in 2025? Have you seen some good companies like yours getting some traction? Should we highlight some teams who are actually doing an impact?
Yeah, I mean, the name of my company should give you an indication of how bullish I am on the Middle East. It's literally Coin and then Mina. We're very, very bullish on the Middle East and North Africa. And I would say more specifically on the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, because the licensing allows you to reap the benefits in the long term and in the short term. So I personally think that tokenized financial assets are going to be the most successful implementations of tokenized assets are going to come out of the UAE, because you do need governments to be part of it. And in the UAE, the government is significantly more agile and aggressive and friendly than in other countries. So that's one area that I'm quite excited about. And I think that financial institutions here will also get into the game significantly more than neighboring markets. And yeah, I guess the US now is entering in a phase of deregulations, which means that many companies will want to go to the US because the US is the biggest market. So yes, UAE, Bahrain, and others will need to make it even more appealing to come here, because previously tech companies used to go to San Francisco and nowhere else because that's where you can get the money. Now, countries need to be more aggressive because the US is kind of back to being a very appealing place to set up your business.
On my side, I will do last question. Talal, we saw each other a few weeks ago. You had colored hair. I was pleasantly, surprised. You explained to me the story. How did you color your hair? It was blue or green?
Yeah,
actually?
so I tell you about the blue and green story, and my partner.
No, by the way, he doesn't have you don't have now visible, but tell us the story.
Yeah, I'll under the clip, I'll put a picture. So actually, it was supposed to be green, but I don't know, you don't know maybe, but I'm actually very colorblind. I see half of the colors. So I thought it was green, but technically it ended up being blue. But the bet was a 7 or 8-year-old standing bet with my brother and wife. Actually, my wife was my girlfriend at the time. That was before we were married. And basically, it was a self-inflicted bet. I told them Bitcoin is going to reach $100,000, and once it reaches $100,000, I'm going to dye my hair green. And part of the bet was also that I will streak, but I did not do that because, man, but at the time I was like 26 years old, and Bitcoin was at around $1,000. So at 100x, I was ready to do anything. Like at that time, yeah, what am I? I'm not really gonna care. And once it hit $100,000, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go and dye my hair green. So I asked a few friends, and my friend Yasmin was kind enough to organize a top-notch barber or like a salon,
Yes.
hair salon, not like men type barber, proper salon. And I went, and they're like, yeah, by the way, if you need to dye your hair green, you need to bleach it first. And I had no idea what that was. And 20 minutes later, I looked like Eminem because they had to bleach my hair. Like literally, it became bleached, and then they dyed it. And I had Abu Dhabi Finance Week the week after. My wife's like, are you gonna go like that to Abu Dhabi Finance Week? I'm like, what am I gonna do? Of course I'm gonna do it. So yeah, I had green or blue hair for about 3 weeks, but a bet is a bet, and life is too short to not stay true to your word. I probably looked like an idiot, but
No, you look great. You look strong. Sorry,
yeah. So
seriously.
now
I do not know how I missed you in Abu Dhabi Finance Week.
yeah. You know what's the thing that was scaring me the most? I'm like, oh man, I'm now gonna need to cut my hair, and I have two outcomes: either goes back, or I'm gonna need to fly to Turkey because
we all.
I'm not gonna accept going bald. But yeah, I mean, it's looking so far so good. So yeah, and the big question was, so what are you gonna do again? And my mom was, Talal, please, if you're gonna do another bet at 250 or at $1 million, don't do something stupid like dyeing your hair. Buy a house. Do something. Yeah, I'm not gonna do any commitments yet for what we'll do at 250 or at $1 million, but yeah, it certainly won't be dyeing my hair.
The way you're going at 250, it will be a tattoo.
Yes, strong.
And maybe at 1 million, you'll buy a motorbike or something,
Oh,
like
like
a Harley Davidson.
Motorbike, yeah, my wife will definitely veto that, and
Because you will hit that midlife crisis.
100%.
For sure.
Well, hopefully not far away too long. Yeah.
With the leather jacket, you'll be on the bike and you'll be like going.
yeah, my friends, when I dyed my hair green, my friends were like, you're one supercar purchase away from officially being in a midlife crisis. But yeah, so I didn't do that.
Talal, it was really amazing. Demetrios, I think we had an awesome
An
discussion.
absolute pleasure, actually, to have you
Yeah,
here with us.
Yes.
really, it was an honor being with you guys. It's great to see that you guys are hosting it. I been on several podcasts. Very few of them were speaking to people that are this knowledgeable in crypto. Usually it's more venture, it's more entrepreneurship, and there's some crypto element to it. So it's very refreshing to see in Dubai experts such as yourself hosting a podcast like this, and hopefully it was useful. Hopefully I didn't just go on tangents, because I sometimes do that. But yeah, appreciate you having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll have you back again when Bitcoin reaches 250 to show us this big tattoo.
Pleasure.
And we enjoyed all your conversations, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Talal.